Just Baseball show is live, and it's time to talk about the top 10 first basemen in Major League Baseball going into 2026. What does the top five look like? It feels like on the DH list, on the utility list, on the catcher list that you guys did a little bit earlier this week, there was a clear-cut number one, right? Ohtani was going to be the number one designated hitter. Cal Raleigh was going to be the number one catcher. But now it's sort of kind of a toss-up at this point. We kind of sort of got to a consensus. I just said sort of kind of and kind of sort of twice in the same 10 seconds. So I will tell you, it's Just Baseball show, Jack and Aram. As always, it is presented by the good folks at BetMGM. A reminder to make it legendary. The NFL playoffs are coming to a close. Super Bowl is right around the corner. We have that whole Radio Row week where for some reason, Kansas City and Omaha, Nebraska and Jacksonville, Florida are all going to send a radio station to the Super Bowl just to talk about the Super Bowl. I understand that every market is interested in the Super Bowl. I just don't think you need every single media outlet there around America. But enough of that soapbox. I'm excited to talk about first baseman, Aram Layton.
No, I mean, it's not going to compare to the Radio Row at winter meetings, but, you know, it's a pretty good Radio Row over there. No, I'm excited, man. I think this is a very interesting position that I was messing around with Peter a little bit in the staff chat earlier today, and I could just tell immediately that this is a controversial position. So I'm excited. Yeah. I am going to get some jabs still in at Peter. I know you're listening right now, Peter. So not right now, but I know you're listening, and I hope you enjoy these jabs where it's already published. You can't do anything about it. I already said it. Because I'm going to share some thoughts here. But he did make some good counter arguments that when we do clown Peter, I am going to also present the counter arguments he made. Okay. And I do think, though, to be fair with this position, because of the combination of vets that I could understand having some concern about slowing down, and then also some young guns who I can also – Peter is king of the I need to see it again. But I could also understand with a couple of the guys needing to see it again. So it is a very interesting – and wide-ranging position.
He might need to see it again from the guy manning first base for the Dodgers, but you know what? We're going to clown him then when we get to it. I did want to bring this up. What is a Super Bowl? That's right, the big game. Everybody has to call it the big game. They can't use that actual word. So my apologies for that. We're going to get into the honorable mentions right now because I don't think we have anything pertinent off the top. Osvaldo Bido got DFA'd by the Angels after getting DFA'd by the Marlins, so he's kind of in DFA limbo right now, hoping that Bido can cycle through again. Another guy going through DFA limbo right now is Marco Luciano, who was DFA'd by the New York Yankees. There are some weird DFA carousel guys going on right now. I will say that.
Dude, I feel bad. Like some of these guys, but I guess it's just like you just sit and just find out when they'll tell you where to report, right?
I don't think they're hopping on Rockies.com and buying merch. I don't
it's like, all right, here we go. But there's a few guys that are just too good to just fully not be claimed, but not good enough for a team to let them stop them from claiming somebody else they might like. And those guys just bounce around. It's so tough.
Another one real quick here. I appreciate Sean Donahue pointing this out. Does a great work on the editorial side of Just Baseball. No Eddie Julian talk. Yanquiel Fernandez, another guy that got DFA'd. But Edouard Julien and Pearson Ole go to Colorado from Minnesota in exchange for a young pitching prospect and something else, right? International bonus pool money, I want to say.
Yeah, I forget what the other piece was, but the Rockies are finally doing something that they should have been doing more frequently a long time ago. And again, I think that's why it's just good to shake up the front office here. Yeah. Take advantage of decent players that may be struggling a little bit that have no options left and teams don't know quite what to do, right? Like, so even the Twins, they're not rebuilding, right? Clearly. So like they're in a kind of a spot where they want to try to compete a little bit, and they can't option Julian. They don't want to use a active roster spot on him right now with some of the other guys that they have in there. And so they're kind of in this limbo. And so take advantage of that. There's always teams that are in a little bit of a crunch there. And if you stink and you're at altitude and you can go maybe find a guy with plus power potential and walks a lot, like take that shot. So yeah. I love it from that lens. And like, if you're swapping a Yanquiel for Eddie Julian, like I think that's a good swap at this point because I think there's a higher chance of Julian's skill set translating and being maximized like at altitude. Whereas Fernandez, the biggest issue was approach, and that I don't think is going to get much better at altitude. Julian's patient. He's going to hit the ball hard. And I think there's a guy that could see that Moniak type of leap
Yes.
in Colorado, which I'm looking forward to him potentially having the opportunity to do so.
That's a really good shout because I appreciate what you're saying about guys that are running out of options or are out of options, because typically those guys are sitting ducks. Like, I think I was looking at Atlanta's roster resource the other day, and I think Bryce Elder is out of options. And Bryce Elder is not a guy that you want breaking camp in your rotation if you're the Atlanta Braves. So it's either DFA him and lose him for peanuts, or just shove him in the bullpen and hope that you never really have to see him in a leverage moment. A guy like Bryce Elder, his value is very, very low. So there are so many teams, if they do need a safe five starter, they can go and get Bryce Elder for somebody that is okay in the lower minors. But the layer that I wanted to add to the Julian and the Moniak thing is you're finding guys that are out of options that have proof in the pudding. And Peyton just made a great point in our private chat. Like, 2023 Eddie Julian was a good player. Edouard Julien has a season in Major League Baseball where he was a 2.5 win player with an 840 OPS. He has done this before. Mickey Moniak, he didn't do it with Philly, but he did it with Anaheim, and he did it before. So Colorado has that, and they're saying, you know what? We know that it's in there. It's not like you're still this idea from draft day that we're trying to see materialize. We're just trying to get you back to what you once were in the big leagues, and Julian's a good shout there.
Well, and how about targeting some players that should benefit? Like we were talking about, like one of the projects I wanted to do is like how to build a winner at altitude. And this is one of the easy ways to do that. Some guys that hit the ball hard in the air, and that'll be maybe rewarded a little bit more than others at altitude. And with the whiff being hedged a little bit, the approach has always been great. Again, I think Julian's going to be good out there. So I think this Rockies team, when we get ready for like our over-under predictions, I'm getting ready to be all in on Rocktober and taking the over on their win total, because they're operating. I'm not saying well, but they're no longer operating like cavemen. And I think that goes a long way.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Who would have thought that we spent 7.5 minutes on Super Bowl Radio Row and Edouard Julien going to the Colorado Rockies? But you know what? That's a Just Baseball show, folks. Let's get to the honorable mentions here ahead of the top 10 first basemen of Major League Baseball going into 2026. We have 3 honorable mentions that we want to give you, and I'm going to give you all 3 names real quick. And then we are going to run through each one by one. But a reminder, the voting criteria, there are 8 of us, and we just average out the rankings that we put together. For a list of 10, we rank 1 through 15. Everybody else is assigned a number value of 20. So the 3 honorable mentions that we have just outside of the top 10, Wilson Contreras, one of the newest Boston Red Sox, Jonathan Aranda, also in that division with the Tampa Bay Rays, and then an AL Central first baseman, Vinny Pasquantino, with the Kansas City Royals. Who do you want to start with, Pasquantino?
Yeah, Pasquantino is probably the most interesting because, we saw him get into the slug more this year. And now he might even get into it even more because they're bringing the walls in an already hitter-friendly environment over there in Kansas City. So I think Vinny's a guy that, between the ability to just the bat to ball and the ability to just hit the ball in the air consistently, it just always has felt like he's left some meat on the bone. And at least this past year, it felt like he took a step forward in that regard offensively. The WAR side of things are never going to quite love him because he's not a great defender. He's not terrible, but he's not very good. And on the other side, he's just doesn't get on base very much. So like when 32 home runs is still just shy of 800 OPS, that is tough. But if he can walk a little bit more, that obviously helps. But again, with the walls moving in and just assuming he can just get a little bit better from where he was last year, why can't he hit 40 home runs? It just might not be the sexiest 40 home runs in terms of the other value aspects.
That's okay, man. If you give me 35 to 40 home runs and a sub 20% K rate, I'm all the way in on you being my everyday first baseman.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what he did last year. I feel like it flew under the radar a little bit, but this guy drove in 113. He hit 32 pumps, and he had a 15.5% K rate. So he did the things that you are very, very happy with and screams safety at the first base position. He's the first to tell you that first base defense is going to get dinged, even if you're an all-world defender over there. I would like to see him get a little bit better defensively at first base, but again, the bat is going to speak for itself. I want to jump to Jonathan Aranda in Tampa because this is another guy that I wanted to shove into the top 10 personally, and I think I did shove into the top 10. Did I have him at 10? I had
You
Jonathan
did.
Aranda at 10. Yeah. This guy, listen, there are some things on the Savant page that don't jump off, right? Bat speed is pretty low. K rate, he did punch a little bit at a 25% clip. But what this guy did in terms of hitting the ball hard consistently for a team that flew under the radar all year, he was one of the more underrated hitters in Major League Baseball in 2025.
He always has been. If you listen to the call up, we were talking about him as an underrated prospect for years. Like, it just seems to be the story of Jonathan Aranda. But he pulls the ball in the air at a high clip. I think that was rewarded, at Steinbrenner a little bit more.
Sure.
But he's always been a guy that's been able to get into it, and flash a little bit more power than, again, maybe the bat speed would suggest. He had a 55% hard hit rate this past year. Aranda, I feel like, should be top 10, which is just one of those when we get to the top 10, it's like, well, who you booting out, right? But he's a really, really good first baseman, and a guy that, I think is going to be an important part of the Rays' future. And no matter where they're playing, I still think he's going to get his slug. But the thing that's been consistent for him throughout his career as a minor leaguer as well is that he's going to give you that average too. Like, he's going to hit for average while being able to elevate the ball.
Yes. And in 106 games in 2025, he hit 316. He was 7 points shy of a 400 OBP, and it was an 883 OPS. Even in a hitter-friendly environment, it was a 146 OPS plus. Last honorable mention that we got to talk about is Wilson Contreras, who, again, was acquired by the Boston Red Sox this offseason from the St. Louis Cardinals. He's a 3-time All-Star. He's entering year 4 of a 5-year, $87.5 million contract. And St. Louis ate a little bit of that cash. Now, it was a better prospect return than I think anybody was anticipating for a Wilson Contreras. The only way you do that is if you pay up the prospect package a little bit. But Contreras is coming off of an okay year. It was 135 games. He hit just under 260. He had 20 bombs, which was flirting with kind of his upper echelon season. And it was a 791 OPS. This guy, over his 10-year big league career, has given you not only 29 career B-WAR, but an 811 career OPS. He's an underappreciated hitter, and he's gotten okay over at first base after the move out of the squad.
100%. And this was where it was tough, because I think Aranda, there's a good chance that Aranda could have a better year next year.
Sure.
I mean, the guy put up a 146 WRC plus, like we talked about, and the 14 homers in 106 games. Aranda, with the full season, probably pushes, north of 20 pretty easily, which is where we've kind of seen Contreras hover. But, I think we need to see Aranda available. Injuries have been a little bit of a theme too. And that was his first kind of full season taste at the big league level. Whereas Contreras, for the last 4 years combined now, he has a 130 WRC plus. I mean, he is basically 24 to 40% above average every single year. Every single year since 2022. And really, since he broke into the big leagues, he's just always been a consistent offensive threat. But since he's moved over to first base, his offense has ticked up. I also think that he's going to put up a big year this year. I think there was a little bit of just kind of going through the motions and for a lot of that team in St. Louis last year. And he still put up good numbers. He pulls the ball hard in the air that I think is going to be rewarded quite well in Fenway. I think he's going to be peppering that wall. And I think you're going to see a few more home runs in Fenway as well. But I just think the consistency from Contreras is a huge part of it. And I also think that he's going to age pretty well, not having to catch anymore. Because even as recently as 2024, man, he caught 50 games. 2023, he caught 89 and had dealt with that forearm thing because he was, catching so close to the plate. This was his first full season of just playing first base. And I think he's going to continue to reap the rewards of that this coming season as well, especially in Fenway, and especially for a team that, I think has a little bit of higher aspirations this coming year, as he's a guy in his mid-30s.
Yeah. Before we move into the top 10, I do want to ask you a question that doesn't pertain to the first base position, but it trickles back to a couple weeks ago when Arizona acquired Nolan Arenado. It was a sitting duck season in St. Louis. We've documented that this offseason. The maybe the best fan base in Major League Baseball stopped showing up to the ballpark. Do you think that that same thing that you just said about Wilson could be said about a Nolan Arenado in Arizona? You feel like he could tick up in Arizona, or is it a different conversation?
I think yes, but not as much because like I think Arenado also just father times rearing its head a little bit. But I think he can get back to, I think grading out a little bit better defensively. I think it just he'll sneak out a few more homers. But with Contreras, like this guy's still punishing the baseball. Right? He's still got a hard hit rate in the early 50%. I mean, you look at the EV90 of 108 miles per hour. Like he is crushing baseballs, and I think it'll be rewarded a little bit more. But I do think we're going to see a little bit of an Arenado bump this coming season too.
Sure. Wilson, still twitchy. We're going to get to the top 10 in a moment. Let's whoosh. Getting into the top 10 here, we go out to the American League West. And our number 10 first baseman in Major League Baseball going into 2026 is Josh Naylor of the Seattle Mariners. Naylor just signed a 5-year, $92.5 million deal to return to Seattle, the team that he spent 2.5 months with after the trade deadline. It was a really good start in Arizona, but it was an otherworldly finish in Seattle in 2025. This guy, through the eyes of war, had the best season of his major league career in his age 28 campaign in 25. In 147 games, he hit .295 with 20 bombs, 92 driven in, and 30 stolen bases in 32 attempts. It was an .816 OPS. But the numbers got better when he went to Seattle. In 54 games with the Mariners, he hit .299 with 9 homers. He was 19 for 19 in the stolen base department in 54 games, and he had an .831 OPS. 19 for 19 in the stolen base department in 2 months, 30 bags on the year, and he's listed at 5'10", 235. He was playing invigorated baseball in Seattle, and I feel like that's what pushed him through the tape of being a top 10 first baseman of the game going into 26.
Yeah, and I think he really solidified, at least for me, and I think this has to be considered here. He just solidified himself as a big game guy. And I think when we're splitting hairs and we're talking tiebreakers, Peter and I were joking about that with the DH position. It's like, all right, tiebreaker is going to be the catcher position. It's like Alejandro Kirk is a clog on the base paths, and Will Smith is only semi-slow. That might be the differentiator. But like honestly, there's two things that I think can be interesting tiebreakers, even at a position at first base. Are you given some value on the base paths, and then who are you in October? And I think the latter obviously much more important. But Naylor has just been that guy. You think about Cleveland cradling the baby as he's running around the bases against the Yankees, and then you look at what he did this past postseason: 12 games where he hit .340. with a .967 OPS. The other part is the instincts and just the natural ability to do things that I just don't think are going to show up. And we love to cite all these advanced metrics all the time. And that's a big part of how you analyze baseball nowadays. But I think there's something to be said about Naylor's ability to grab the extra 90, whether that is, from an actual stolen base, which is clearly a part of his game and needs to be valued here, but also just the base running value in general. I think the defensive side of things, I think he's always going to be a little bit better of a defender than he grades out metrically, whether you look at scoops and the athleticism around the bag and all those different things. So I think Naylor is a guy that just can't fully be appreciated in the eyes of the data points that we so commonly cite. And I think that's an important aspect of him. But at the same time, I think one of the things that maybe limits just a little bit is it's a position that demands a lot of power. And I think he's always going to be a little bit of that hybrid of hit and power. And he's always going to be a pretty aggressive, hitter as well.
Yeah. And I mean, this guy, like that hybrid, it works if you are not falling into the 22% K rate area, right? You're not a league average bat to ball guy and you're hitting 20 homers. He's hitting 20 homers and he's punching out 16% of the time. Last year was 13.5% of the time. So he is a lot like, what we were talking about with in a Ronda or with a Vinny. Like this is a guy that's really not going to punch, and he's going to give you enough power to have extreme value, which is cool. In terms of the voting breakdown on Naylor, you and Peyton were the only two that were true to the 10 ranking. Peter and I had him 12th. Leo had him 10th as well. Sorry. And then Ryan, Eric, and Joey all had him 9th. So
I think one other wrinkle that's valuable here is that, and it's going to be a theme here in some of the guys that we talk about, Naylor's, at least last year, he's not going to slug the same degree against lefties, but that's a guy that you can keep in the lineup. He had 287, against left-handed pitching. It was a 760 OPS, but just knowing that he's going to continue to give you good at-bats left on left as well, I think is extremely valuable. It wasn't as good the year before, but I think that was something that he focused on and took a step forward, and definitely helps his case.
And his podcast P helped us see he's willing to put his left shoulder / upper back / helmet on the line for his brothers in the World Series or in the ALCS in Game 7. So good for Naylor. Heads up player. Thank you, Peyton Genis. Let's get to number 9 here. Who we got at 9?
Number 9 is Ben Rice. And this is a fascinating one because Rice is a guy that you look at the Savant page, and I think that's definitely going to make you very excited about what can be. And I think it's also valid. Sometimes there's just going to be the guys, though, that their Savant page is super red, and they don't quite meet that production. I don't think Ben Rice is one of those guys, and I think 2025 was a clear indicator that he's heading towards becoming one of the more intriguing young power bats in the game. I think something that's very lost with Ben Rice is the fact that he has played less baseball than probably anybody else in the major leagues. Like, no exaggeration, has played less baseball than those guys. An Ivy League kid that had his 2020 season canceled, and then people forget Ivy League, for whatever reason, also opted out of 2021. Yeah. So he didn't get to play in 2021 either. He had like a handful of collegiate games before being signed, as a non-drafted free agent, if I remember that correctly, and then kind of flying through the Yankee system. And that was as also still trying to catch, and he still does catch a little bit. So I do think that Ben Rice, there's a very compelling case that the best baseball is still ahead of him. And at 26 years old, I think his baseball age is really like 22. And you look at last year's numbers, 530 plate appearances. He had 255, 337, 499 slug. That's good for an 836 OPS, 26 homers. And again, I know we just put the Savant page up on the screen, but for those listening on audio, like, he's 90th percentile in just about every single component of the batted ball side and the swing decision side. And I think that's why this is a guy, 12th round pick, 12th round pick, but this is a guy that I think is only going to get better. And I think this is another Yankee scouting success, which they do a pretty good job on this front. You got to give them credit.
Yeah. And it's really cool that when he first came up, everybody was saying, well, he sucks at catching. He's not going to play catcher. Like, there was already a knock on Ben Rice when he came up, and then he moves to first base. And to your point, the best days for him on a baseball field are still ahead of him. He's already good at everything. So him at first base is seen through an entirely different lens than him as a catcher, because you're not trying to stick a square peg in a round hole, right? It's okay. He can move over to first base. You don't need to bring Paul Goldschmidt back. You don't need to pay Christian Walker $60 million. You've got this guy, and it worked out for them. So own this. Have him for the next 5-6 years. Give him an extension. You're the Yankees. Ben Rice is immediately proving that he is really good already, with the chance to be great as soon as this year. And if you gave him ample runway and you didn't shelter him from left-handed pitching like you did last year to give Goldie at bats, and I understand why you did. Goldie was still really good against left-handed pitching last year. If you just give him 162 to play first base for the New York Yankees, we're looking at a guy that I think can catapult his way into the top 6, top 5 on this list.
100%. And especially, like, I think he's a guy that is just good enough to play every day. I like, there's going to be a disparity in production, lefty versus righty, but with the power profile that Ben Rice has, and of course it's perfect for Yankee Stadium, he only struck out 16% of the time against right-handed pitching, which is just ridiculous. And then you flip it over to the left side and say, okay, yeah, well, he struck out 28% of the time against lefties. That's still palatable, especially when it's a 752 OPS. He still left the yard 7 times. So, like, there's guys out there that you put them in left-on-left situations, and not only do they strike out more, their power dissipates. So it's like, well, what am I even putting them in there for? For me, if there's a platoon option, you can always go with that. But for me, if I still have the puncher's chance, like with a left-on-left matchup and a decent approach, I'm going to keep that guy in the lineup and look elsewhere to platoon. And I think that's where Rice has earned his opportunity. And he only got better as the year progressed. He gave him 119 plate appearances, and he hit 7 homers against lefties. So I think this is a guy that can stick in the lineup left on left and then just destroy righties, and is going to be good for a long time. And for the Yankees, I know Brian Cashman's he does the thing every year where he's like, I challenge you to convince me that this isn't a World Series restaurant.
Yeah,
I am challenging everybody to tell me that Anthony Volpe is not a good shortstop. Just because you're challenging people doesn't make you right.
Yes.
And people get, and when they say that you're wrong, I've seen the media do it because it's New York and that's the one fun side of it. Right. Then he'll just say, okay, we disagree. Congrats, you challenged them. That doesn't mean that you're right. I think the one thing that can elevate this roster this coming season and to beat the like running it back claims is the fact that Ben Rice could take another step forward and be that protection around Judge on top of bringing Bellinger back.
3 guys that fit that criteria. Actually, 4 guys that fit that criteria wholly, I think. Ben Rice, Jason Dominguez fits that. I think Austin Wells fits that. And then I think Schlittler fits that as well. So he's looking at those 4 guys, I'm sure, saying, you're going to take a step and we're going to look a hell of a lot better than we did in 2025.
And I buy it. I actually do buy it. I'm going to give him shit every time he says, like, I challenge you to it's not that big of a challenge, man. We can just do it.
I understand. It's the premise. Okay. Let's go to number 8 here. And number 8 is in the National League Central. It's Michael Busch of the Chicago Cubs. And if you were thinking, really, this guy's a top 10 first baseman in baseball, he was on a loaded Cubs team. He was in a loaded Cub lineup. Pete Crow Armstrong had a breakout. Kyle Tucker was Kyle Tucker in his walk year for the Chicago Cubs. Seiya Suzuki had 100 RBIs. Michael Busch hit 260 with 34 bombs and 90 driven in. It was an 866 OPS. This guy blossomed. He had no opportunity to play a Major League Baseball game with the LA Dodgers. They were few and far between. He gets moved in that Zaire Hope, Jackson Ferris deal. Yetzi Almonte was the other piece. Almonte was DFA. It does not matter. Zaire Hope can play big league games for the Dodgers. Jackson Ferris can make big league starts for the Dodgers. You got Michael Busch out of this, and the Cubs have their everyday anchor at first base for the foreseeable future.
Down the stretch and including the postseason, as much as I love Kyle Tucker, as you know, Michael Busch was the guy you wanted up for the Cubs, like without a doubt. And in the postseason, he hit 4 homers in 8 games. But even just down the stretch of the season, like that was the guy that you wanted up, like without a doubt. And I think that says a lot considering how loaded that lineup was, to your point. And I think he's just come along in so many different ways. The one thing with him is I think Michael Busch has earned the right to see left-handed pitching. And they sheltered him last year a decent bit. And that was something that made it difficult for me to figure out exactly where to rank him, because I think there's a case to put him even higher. But I think, also you want to see him do it again. But I think there's a lot of reason to believe that he will do it again. You look at, again, his just peripherals. He hits the ball hard consistently. He hits the ball in the air consistently. So consistently hard in the air is almost always going to age well for you. The swing decisions are good, and that's always been an asset to him since I was evaluating him as a prospect. And I think there's still even more room to improve, where you look at the bat to ball, it's good enough. It's, if anything, it's actually better than he gets credit for. The swing decisions being good. He should probably punch out less next year. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if that happens. But when you've got above average EVs, high fly ball rate or air rate, and again, good swing decisions, it's a guy that's going to be consistently solid. And I think the one thing that was limiting a little bit was that they didn't let him hit lefties. I think they're going to let him do that this coming season. And I mean, this is a guy that I also think can duplicate that season and be in the conversation for top 5 first baseman as well.
And we've talked about this a couple of times, and you've asked, how much do you value a strong finish to the season? And I said, a little bit. I think people could value a strong finish to the season more than I do. And this is a perfect candidate to value a strong finish to the season. As Peyton just told us in the private chat, Busch hit 8 homers in September. They played a 3-game wild card series and a 5-game DS. He had 4 homers in those 8 games as well. So we're looking at 12 home runs in the final 6 weeks of the season.
23-game span, 12 homers in a 23-game span with, by the way, 12 walks and 14 strikeouts in that stretch.
Come on. 12 homers and 14 Ks in a 23-game span?
Yep.
That's next level stuff.
With a third of those games being in the playoffs against the
cool
Padres and Brewers pitching staff.
Yeah. Definitely a step up in star power here as we get to number 7. Who we got?
Yeah, this was where it was tough for me, but I don't think it was as tough for everybody else. Rafael Devers checks in at number 7. And Devers is a tough player to assess, especially at this position, because we haven't seen a ton of him at first. But I actually think first base is only going to make him more valuable. It was just another patented Rafael Devers season, even with all the turmoil and confusion and changing of scenery there, being sent to across the country from Boston over to San Francisco. You look at the final season numbers, and it was another really good one for him. He technically played 163 games. Do I have that right?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Yeah.
But which is a big selling point for Devers too. I think that's been something that, has been valuable for him. But 851 OPS, 250, 372, 479 slash line, 35 homers. And I think that the most exciting part about it is he goes over to San Francisco, and the question kind of was, okay, well, we know that he can slug. Of course he's going to hit anywhere, but we know that the home run output's going to play in Boston. Is he going to be able to put up the same kind of output in a very pitcher-friendly San Francisco ballpark? And he did. He hit 20 homers in those 90 games in San Francisco. So I found that to be extremely encouraging. And then instead of playing, a subpar third base that he was so adamant on continuing to play, he's actually looks pretty good at first base. And in the short sample, it graded out pretty well metrically. And by all accounts, he should. Right? He's 29 years old and is moving off of third base where he was battling for his life, and now can play first base where he should be more than nimble enough and have all the ingredients to be solid there. So guy hits the living crap out of the ball. He draws more walks than he should for a guy that swings as much as he does. But I think that was another thing that really ticked up in his game. And then I don't need to tell you about his ability to hit balls outside of the zone and just demolish baseballs in general.
Yeah. Listen, it's so much better for him. I think if we're talking about this guy as a net positive at first base defensively, as opposed to a detriment at third base defensively, because that became the conversation around him at third base. Oh, do they need to look to upgrade defensively at third as it pertained to Boston? They did, and then it pissed off Devers. Now your bet is made. You have a platinum glove winner at third base that just signed another extension. You're a first baseman for the rest of your career. You're maybe a DH a little bit, but you're playing first base. You better be okay with that. And I'm happy that we get a 5-month offseason for him to just sit back, say, okay, I play first base, and work on that, because that is going to take a step up, surely. And he's also going to have a clearer head going into 2026. So really excited to see what a clear head, resolution enveloped Rafael Devers looks like, because there's so much closure in that guy's career at such a young age. He knows he's in San Francisco. It's not like that's going to be this hyper movable $300 million deal. That kind of contract gets traded once and then it never gets traded again. He's not going anywhere. So he should know that he's in his forever home and he's at his forever home defensively.
Yep. And I think that's great. And I think this is actually going to help him not DH for a longer amount of time. Because again, he looks pretty good over there and he might only get better. And if he ends up being an above average, I can't even fully rule out him being a well above average defender at first base. That's a nice little differentiator there. So clearly the environment there is not going to affect him. And I think that's huge. And I think we're going to see a really good year out of Devers. And this might look like a really savvy acquisition here by Buster Posey. Because you don't get to acquire players like this, even if the contract is mildly underwater. You don't always know how guys are going to hit in Oracle, and you found another guy that can hit there for sure.
For Jordan Hicks, who is financially an anchor in the bullpen for Boston, for Kyle Harrison, who is the 8 starter for the Red Sox going into the year, and for James Tibbs, who is already traded. It's amazing.
Which you can just convert that into just months of Dustin May.
Yes, that's just
actually not, and they still had to put Earhart on top, who, by the way, I think is like a top 150 prospect in the game. That also went to the Dodgers in that deal. So, yeah, that one's not aging well. It is aging like milk a little bit.
Not at all. Let's jump into number 6 here. And this one's going to upset some people. Before we actually jump into 6, I do want to tell you the voting breakdown of Rafi Devers. Rafael Devers was 6 or 7 for everybody. He was 6 for me and 6 for Eric. He was 7 for Aram, Peyton, Joey, Leo, and Ryan. The only guy that had him inside the top 5 was Peter Apple, who had him as the number 4 first baseman in baseball. 4.
I'm saving my bullets because there's one ranking that again, I'm going to present his counter arguments and some of the other ones because I think they're fair. There's one that I can't wait to try to.
Sure. This one's tough. This one's really tough. The number 6 first baseman in baseball, who Peter Apple ranked 2.
At least he wasn't alone on this one. He's got Leo on his side.
Bryce Harper of the Philadelphia Phillies. Bryce Harper is on a Hall of Fame track. There is no doubt about that. Bryce Harper is one of the best players of this generation, and he's coming off of a season where he had a 131 WRC plus, and he was a 3.5 win first baseman. Bryce Harper hit 27 homers. He swiped 12 bags. It was a good year for Bryce Harper, but it felt like we saw signs of slight regression for Harper, and understandably so. It was his age 32 season. K rate was the same, walk rate was the same, but it just seemed like this guy took a step back, and he took a step back in the slugging department. And Dave Dombrowski, his own president of baseball operations, has said, I don't know if we're going to get the elite Bryce Harper again moving forward. Now, he was saying that as it pertains to just like the flukiness and randomness of baseball performance. It's not an indictment on Harper having him at 6. It's a testament to everybody else that we're going to talk about having really good years in 2025. But it's really hard for me to see a world where he's a top 5 first baseman in the game in 2026.
It's a guy that I'll never want to rule out because I could just see that being like clipped right there. And then it's a Bryce Harper highlight reel where he, performs, to an MVP level and we get dunked on because it's Bryce freaking Harper. But at the same time, we're playing the percentages here, and I'm just going with what we're seeing. And still a very good player. But when it comes to the offensive upside that you get at this position from some other areas, I just don't know if we can full-fledged count on that from Harper at 33. That said, I do like some of the things I've seen in terms of him not cleaning up because he's Bryce freaking Harper, but simplifying the mechanics a little bit, because the way that you can hit at 23 years old may not work when you're 33. And I think he's starting to realize that and saying, okay, how can I make this easier on my body and make it easier to deliver the barrel with violence? And I saw the video of him doing that with a shirt that said not elite or whatever.
Yeah.
So glad, I'm glad he's taking his GM's comments to heart there. But maybe that fuels him a little bit. I've always loved watching Harper play. I think he is such a safe bet to still be an above average bat. But there is some question of like, are we going to get that same caliber of Bryce Harper? Because it has been a while since, like, we're going to talk about some other guys that put up some pretty crazy seasons, including like Nick Kurtz, who put up a 170 WRC plus last year, which is ridiculous. But Bryce Harper hasn't put up a WRC plus above 144 since he put up 170 in 2021 at his age 28 season. Can he do it again? I will never fully count him out, but we now have, a little bit of an injury riddle 2022 where he was still solid, but 139 WRC plus, a 2023 season where it was 141, a 2024 season where it's 144, both really good years. And then a 2025 season where it was 131. His workload has been a little bit more managed, and I think that's something to note as well. And it's just, I don't know. I go back and forth on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up a 150 again. It just seems like we're a few years removed from that.
Yeah, but again, he's simplifying his mechanics. He's wearing not elite t-shirts. He's simplifying his diet, got milk, and Bryce Harper could be due for a little bit of a bounce back in 2026, surely. We're going to get into the top 5 in a moment, but we'll whoosh one more time. All right, top 5. Who is number 5?
Number 5 is Pete Alonso of the Baltimore Orioles, which still feels so weird to say. Yes. Alonso is he's just consistent, man. He's going to drive in a lot of runs, and now it might be an even more friendly environment for him potentially to hit more homers, as weird as that sounds. But with the way that he likes to go, to all fields as well, I think he's going to be a guy that could just, put up big power numbers and drive in a lot of runs just about anywhere. There's also in that lineup, I know it wasn't a bad lineup for him last year, but I think that in this lineup, he could also drive in a ton of runs in Baltimore. But with Alonso, man, like his WAR output's always going to be a little bit nerfed because of his defense. And I think when we talk about the first base position, I don't care about the WAR as much. I think I care about a little bit more about the counting stats and the WRC plus. This was, you could argue in a lot of ways, his best season or close to his best season since that 2019 rookie year where he just kind of took the league by storm. Yes, he's had more homers than he had last year where he had 38. You know, we've had seasons where we've seen him hit 40 and 46. That's 2022 and 2023 respectively. But got on base at a 347 clip, slugged 524, which is his highest slugging percentage since that 2019 season where he hit 53 homers. And even the underlying data from ex-WOBA, that was his highest ex-WOBA of his entire career, even more than that 2019 season where he hit all those homers. Because again, I think there was more consistency. I think that there was just also, I guess I would really boil it down to just more consistency. He's continued to turn himself into a guy that hits the ball more often and still hits the living crap out of the ball. Again, the defense is always going to crater that WAR a little bit, but you can pretty much count on him to hit you 35. Good chance he could hit 40 this year, drive in 100 runs, and now get on base at a respectable clip.
So we're splitting hairs when it comes to 3 through 6 on this ranking. When you look at composite scores, like number 1, his average score was 1.25. Number 2 was 2.25. And then 3 through 6, 4.25, 4.375, 4.5, and 5. So it was really a toss-up from like right in the middle of this clump. So from the 3rd best first baseman in baseball to the 6th best first baseman in baseball. But Pete Alonso, he got votes as high as 3. Peter gave him a 3 nod. Ryan gave him a 3 nod. Joey gave him a 3 nod. You and I gave him 5 nods. And then Leo and Peyton gave him 6 nods. Pete Alonso is, and I know his game doesn't scream it because defensively, sometimes it feels like you're at the Ringling Brothers circus. And there are points where, you know, you feel like he's just tense or something like that. But when it's all said and done and you look at the stat page in December, it's the same thing every year. It is the same damn thing. And it's really good throwback first base play. It is home run totals, RBI totals. He's going to hit for a decent average. And that's the thing that jumps out to me. His best years are the ones where he hits for a high average. And it sounds like super simple to say that, but the difference between a 230 Pete Alonso and a 260 Pete Alonso is jarring, because that probably means that this guy is not putting it on the ground as much. And if he is putting it on the ground, it's 117 miles an hour, and it's probably going to get through a hole. So this guy, in terms of just hitting the baseball as hard as you possibly can, he's at the top of the charts for first baseman, regardless if it's in the air or on the ground.
Yeah, I was going to say, and he's just available, and I think that matters too.
It's 162 back-to-back years.
Him and Matt Olson, I think there's a lot of similarities there. The difference is Olson, better defender, and we'll get there. But, you know, both had 41 doubles last year. That was tied for the lead in the National League. You know, the only guys to have more doubles in Major League Baseball than Matt Olson and Pete Alonso. Can you take a guess? One is, I mean, they both rake, and they both are technically middle infielders.
They both rake, and they're both middle infielders. Bichette,
well, one is, Bichette is number 2, 44.
Yeah, Bichette, and then Seager didn't play enough games. Trey Turner?
No, Bobby
Witt?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
So, I mean, we're talking about 2 big guys, you know, are as the only ones behind. And guess who's tied with them at 41 is Jarren Duran. So we're talking about 2 big guys, and then just trailing 2 guys that can move a little bit and that are, like, you know, known for their ability to, you know, just compile extra base hits, not via the home run as well, right? So he'd be able to do both. I think it says a lot about just the hitting ability of Pete Alonso as well. He's not just that one-dimensional power guy, as much as he probably looks like he is that guy. And I think that's what's very valuable to a player like him. He's going to be good for a long time, man. I really do feel that way. The one thing I will say, though, is I know Ryan Finkelstein likes to cite the scoops, and we don't have a scoops plus stat yet or anything like that, which I do think should be a stat.
I'm sure there's an arbitrary model on X.
There's got to be. And honestly, I think it should be valued. I think there should be, how many errors are you saving? That was something I was actually talking about with Griff the other day. It's like that definitely is a huge part of the value there that's probably getting overlooked. But at the same time, I think the one thing with Alonso is he's probably a candidate to play a little bit less first base. I'm sure he's going to play a little bit less first base this year even as well. And that's what I'm going to be interested to see over the next few years. How much is he really playing first is going to be the interesting wrinkle.
Yeah, and I would guess probably 110, 120 games, and that he DHs 40 to 50. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
would think
I would
so.
think so. So we'll see. By the way, Peyton just brought up a great point. This guy's average exit velocity 89.8 to 93.5.
Is that what Alonso did this past year?
Yes, in 2024, his average exit velocity was 89.8 miles an hour. His average exit velocity in 2025 was 93.5 miles an hour. That's a
Even
nearly 4 mile an hour jump.
and I mean, it's relative also with the 90th percentile, 108.5, 90th percentile, which is great. It's plus in 2024. EV90 of 110 miles per hour this past year. So I
Was
don't
he?
know where he found more
You know
EVs
what? He was pissed he didn't get the 7-year deal from New
and
York.
just swung as hard as he could all the time.
And I remember this one vividly. Peyton showing us hardest hit ball of Pete Alonso's season was 115.9, right into the glove of utility Gold Glove Award winner Javier Sanoa.
That was in a pivotal moment, I remember, right? Because I remember off the bat being like, "Oh, yeah, that's gonna hurt."
It was bases juiced. It was bases juiced, and I think Fish were up 4-0 or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was crazy. Okay, let's get to number 4 here. And you mentioned him just a couple minutes ago. Matt Olson of the Atlanta Braves is the number 4 first baseman in Major League Baseball. My favorite nugget about Matt Olson is that when this guy got traded from the Athletics to the Braves, I think he made this deal with the devil that he will just never miss a baseball game.
Mhm.
In his 4-year career with the Atlanta Braves, this guy has not missed an Atlanta Braves baseball game. 162, 162, 162, 162. And even when the roster is crumbling around him and the lineup is getting hurt and Acuna's getting hurt again and Albies has a flare up and Albies is disappointing and Harris is disappointing and Riley gets hurt again and Murphy gets hurt again, Matt Olson somehow manages to be like the one steady force in that lineup year after year after year. That 2023 Atlanta Braves offense is equivalent to the 2019 LSU Tigers. He hit 54 bombs and had 139 RBIs. But in the 2 years since then, it's been 29 homers and 98 driven in, 29 homers and 95 driven in. It's so much like Alonso where you know what you're getting, but to the nth degree because you know he's playing literally every day, as opposed to Alonso missing like 5 games over a 3-year stretch. Olson's going to miss 0. And you know that you're getting good defense at first base. I love this guy. And I thought the Freeman for Olson swap worked out perfectly for them a couple of years ago when it happened.
Oh yeah, and it, it's it's interesting because I think when you look at what Olson brings to the table, it looks a little bit different than Freeman in some ways, but at the same time, it's the production. Look, Freeman's Freeman, but the production that they're getting there is within arm's reach, right? In a lot of different ways. It's the hard part about assessing Matt Olson to me is how much confidence do we have that he can get back to that 2023? Because if you do any queries from 2023, like since 2023, Olson's going to be at the top at the position because of how much weight that 2023 season carries.
Sure.
That said, the last 2 are still really good and he's top 3 or 4 at the position. I still think that's in there though, especially if the rest of the offense around him is performing a little bit better. And that's where I'm fascinated. Like we've seen Olson, especially like in the Coliseum where it's really tough to swing it, hit 39 homers there and that 147 WRC plus. And I think just taking that step back or that step forward again, so closer to where we've seen him, right? It was like 2024 was disappointing. And then 2025 was right between the superstar season and the disappointing season we saw. And even disappointing is still above average.
Yeah.
Where's he going to be this coming season? And I think that's an interesting question. But at the same time, you also know that at worst, he's going to play every day. He's going to be one of the better defenders at the position. He's going to hit you right by 30 homers. And he's going to get on base at a pretty good clip. And that's why I feel like you have still this ceiling to dream on, even though he's 31, 32 years old. But the floor is also still so good that to me, that's why I had Matt Olson at number 3.
So I was going to say, voting breakdown, you and Eric were the high guys at 3, right? The low guy who had him at 7 was the one that gave us a 2.27 ERA his senior year of high school in 12 1/3 innings of work and had a 500 on base percentage. Peter Apple had him at 7.
I'm glad you fit that in.
Are you holding your bullet still, or is this one of the ones that you want to
This
deploy?
Is one of them. 7? Like, I get it being like, okay, I'm concerned about the 2024 season, right? I get it. His bad season was still solid. And then we just saw him take a step right back towards, what we've become accustomed to seeing. If you start doing the query like since 23, like at the position, there are not a lot of guys doing what he's been doing. And again, I understand that the 2023 season carries a lot, but like, let's go to 2021. Olsen has been one of the most consistent at the position, period. And I think, again, knowing that you're going to get pretty much 30 home runs, knowing that you're going to get a guy that's available and going to defend really well, and then still be an above average bat, and you still have this pipe dream of 40 plus, 50 plus that's very reasonable. Since the start of the 2021 season, by F4, Matt Olson's second, only behind Freddie Freeman at 27 F4. Number 2 is Matt Olson at 22. 3 is Bryce Harper at 21.
Yeah, and Peyton made the point. Olson 5 spots behind Bryce Harper on Peter's rankings.
That gap is what I can't really wrap my head around, to be honest, because I don't really understand. The floor of Harper is great, but do we think Harper is going to post a 150 WRC plus this coming season? I think we're comparing two guys that are very, very similar here. And I can understand leaning towards Harper over Olson. I just can't understand the disparity being that wide.
I see Peyton screaming in the background. Do you want to say your piece here, man? Podcast P, you're more than welcome to say your piece right now. Let's see if he waves off or if he gets actually involved here. Yeah, he's getting involved here. Let's go, man. What you got here? You were screaming. Are you screaming at Peter or are you screaming at the premise right now? What's going on?
I don't have a, what's it called?
Yeah, there we go. I got
it. So the gap drives me crazy just because I think Olsen just has such a higher floor. Like with Harper, you can see the MVP, of course, because I think we all give Harper aura points instinctually. Sure. I think we all do it. I think he's one of the only players in the league that benefits from aura. Like,
well, in rankings, admitted to calculating aura. He has.
I think the only players in baseball who has, like if you had to guess, like if there was a podium of players who benefit from sheer vibes, it's probably Harper, maybe Jordan, and like
I think Jazz is on that list.
Jazz. I don't know about Jazz anymore because I don't think people think he's cool anymore.
I think Jazz is on that list. Yeah,
exactly, in the opposite way. But I think while Harper has the MVP ceiling, it's like, okay, Harper misses time every year. Olsen never misses time. Like I said in the private chat, he has more games played in the last 4 years than Buxton has in the last 9.
It's crazy.
He is a better defender. Harper's a good defender, but Olsen's otherworld.
Yeah.
And they're kind of equal hitters. Like if we're running a simulation, like 20 seasons, like the OPS is probably going to be similar. I just think 2 and 7's a wild gap. I had Harper over Olsen, if I remember correctly. I think I went back and forth on that just because I gave Harper aura points. I'm sorry.
But yeah, you had Harper 4, Olsen 5.
Yeah, because I think I think I hold it against players when they have back-to-back down years. It's kind of a bad trait of mine. It's like because it's like okay, he's not replicating 2023, and I think I hold that against him probably a bit too much. But I think the floor of Olsen is just so high. I don't know how you can justify 7. Sorry, Pete.
And I just, if I had to tell you, Peyton, you got to pick one guy to hit 40 home runs next year. Who are you picking?
Olsen, because I know he's going to play every day.
Well, also, when do you think the last time Bryce Harper said 40 home runs is?
His MVP year in 20. Yeah, in 2015.
I don't even think he did it in 21, right? He
hit He's only had one 40 homer season.
Wow.
Right?
And
because
because
I made a video. It was kind of inflammatory where I said Harper peaked at 22 or 21 years old because it's just like he hit an 1100 OPS in 2015, and he's like never even come remotely close.
Did anybody call you Ebenezer Scrooge after making that video, or what?
Ethan.
Ethan.
But yeah, no. I mean Harper, like he just has like. In any given month or week, he's the best player on earth. He just doesn't. I don't think he has the durability to, maybe have those insane seasons again. But please make me the intro of an edit if he does.
Yeah. Which again, I'm on board with too. I think he's going to have a nice season, but a nice season's probably similar to what he did last year. Even if it's 5% better, like that would be what Matt Olson's year was last year. And then again, Olson's going to give you better defense. And I think Olson's got a better chance to tap into a little bit more juice this coming season. And yeah, I do think we have to pay attention to, like, we talk about baseball years and like tread on the tires. Like Harper's 33, but he's been playing full MLB season since he was 19 years old here. And yeah, I think there's a little bit of a difference there where like Matt Olson's age 31 or age 32 season, I think is a little bit more fresh than Bryce Harper's age 33 season. And I think the injuries over the last handful of years point towards that. And that was the one thing that I got. So I was going back and forth with Pete, is like, he thinks Freddie Freeman might understandably slow down, but why wouldn't Bryce Harper slow down, who's been hurt each of, at least in some ways, each of the last 4 years?
Can I give one note about Harper that I just noticed now that I don't know if it's worrying me? I think it's kind of, okay, Pete. Okay, that's just objectively false.
Yeah, because
real quick for Peter Apple just commented in the live stream, Olson has a lower floor.
Okay, that's just wrong. I'm sorry.
I disagree.
He's playing 100. You're getting 162 games and better defense from Olson, who, again, like every
with a better OPS last year, but
and had a better OPS last year, and is 2 years removed from a WRC plus that would be the second highest of Bryce Harper's, or third highest of Bryce Harper's career, and highest since 2021.
But an interesting thing about Harper that I didn't realize until now, which I wonder your thoughts on, Aram, is that the chase rate has crept. Like, I know he's kind of been swing happy at times, but the chase rate has crept up a scary bit. Like in 2021, for example, is at 24%, and now it's at 35. So it has been high at times in his career, and I wonder if that's him cheating for heaters.
I 100% think it is.
If he's scared, he's getting blown up by heaters. Like you said, there's a tread on tires thing. A little bit of reaction time loss, you're kind of cooked in baseball. But that's an interesting thing to monitor, I think, at the least. Is he also last year had a 40% whiff rate against breaking balls, which he has flirted with in times in his career, but a 35% chase rate does not feel like this version of Harper.
And I think there's a big reason why Harper has now, for the first time in his career, actually adjusted the mechanics to try to simplify things, because I think when you see the chase rate climb as guys age like that, I think there's no more clear thing than you've never seen more pitches than the next year you've played, right? You're the most veteran you've ever been each season. It should be easier to recognize spin and track, but not if you're moving slower and you're not getting the barrel out, because to your point, you're cheating. And I think that's something that was a big reason why Harper has gone back to the drawing board and cleaned things up a little bit. And I don't want this to come off as Harper hate. And like when we talk about the rankings for Harper, like I had him at 6, and I was still probably a little bit lower than
I
the
felt
mean
bad
there,
about having him at 7.
But Matt,
I want to give
you're guaranteed 162 games. You still have arguably as high of a ceiling given what we've just become accustomed to. And I think the floor with Harper's lower because you have an injury theme now for pretty much 4 straight seasons where he's been banged up.
I want to give one caveat to the chase rate thing I brought up, and that is the fact that consistently year over year, nobody sees less pitches in the zone than Bryce Harper. That's why Harper can run a 35% chase rate, but still be 88th percentile in walk rate. Like that's just like an insane difference, right? No one sees less pitches in the zone than him. So I think that's probably why he gets swing happy.
I think it was still him and Soto at the top last year in terms of just strike percentage that they see.
But he's just a bit more swing happy, but I guess that's something to monitor in 2026.
100%.
Interesting.
Okay.
All right. We are going to get to number 3 here. Aram, who we got for number 3?
Number 3 is Matt Olson.
No, it's not.
No, his predecessor.
About Matt Olson.
Oh, Nick Kurtz. Sorry. Nick Kurtz checks in at number 3. And by like a razor thin margin on Matt Olson, because this is the really tough one. This is the floor ceiling comp, because Nick Kurtz put up one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen in this game. And that 170 WRC plus, I mean, was like the third best in Major League Baseball behind only Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. So 117 games, the guy hit 36 homers and had, again, 290, 383, 619 slash line, that 4.6 F4 as well. The other thing with Kurtz I think is interesting is he didn't grade out great defensively. I think he's a very good defender, and I think he's going to grade out better in this coming season. So that could help him a lot as well. We'll stay on the positives, and I'll kick it to you, and then I'll talk about some of the just minor concerns about maybe replicating what he did this past year. Sure. But Nick Kurtz is the epitome of hitting the ball hard in the air, not chasing too much, and just dominating at what you are good at and maximizing that in a similar way that Aaron Judge does, where you're going to have your blue zones, but your red zones are almost auto homer. And that's what it was this past year.
Yes. Nick Kurtz, I'm going to run you through what he led in, or I guess how many guys led him in certain categories from his major league debut. But the voting breakdown real quick, again, razor thin. Matt Olson, his composite score was 4.375. Nick Kurtz was 4.25. So in terms of Kurtz, Peter had him at 6. He was the low guy. Aram had him at 4. So did Leo, Eric, and that's it. Peyton had him at 3. I had him at 3. Joey had him at 5. Ryan had him at 5. So Peyton and I actually matched the ranking, with him being the third best first baseman in baseball going into 2026. We're going to play a game. I have the FanGraph query up from the date of his major league debut, April 23rd, this past year. So I'm going to ask you, how many guys finished above this number among first basemen, primary first basemen? WRC plus at 170. How many finished above him?
Since when?
From his debut, April 23rd onward, among
0.
first basemen. 0. Yeah, he was first by 39 points, I want to say, 29 points. Yeah, Vladdy was second at 141. WAR, how many people finished above his 4.6 F-WAR?
0.
Olson was second at 4.1. How many first basemen finished above his 36 home runs?
0.
How many people finished above his 12.9% walk rate?
1.
0. How many people finished above his 383 OBP?
0.
How many people finished?
I would have been so pissed if that was 1, by the way. If that was 1, I would have been really mad.
Vladdy was 1 point lower at 382. How many people finished above his 419 WOBA?
0.
That was about 50 points higher than the second best first baseman since that point in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. This guy from his debut, and I'm going to say something crazy right now, and I need you guys to hold your reaction. This is just the Paul Skeens conversation at first base. I understand the idea of wanting to ding this guy for not having done it for an extended period of time, and the book could be out on him going into 2026, but this is your opportunity to get in on the ground floor of somebody that was, from time of debut, in a large enough sample, so far and away the best in the sport at that position. From Paul Skeens' debut in 2024 through the end of the 24 season, he was the best pitcher in baseball. And you could still play that date range. From that point, Paul Skeens has a career ERA under 2. Skubal doesn't. Skubal, you could make the argument because of the strikeouts and the lack of walks, Skubal could be the best pitcher in baseball, but Skeens is there, and this is your opportunity to stamp yourself as, yeah, I believe Skeens is the best pitcher in baseball. For me, this is your opportunity to say, yeah, you know what? Nick Kurtz is the next top first baseman in the game. And it's a hard thing to crack. And I'm not talking about number 1. I'm talking about number 3. But I'm just saying it's undeniable from this guy's debut, he was the best at this position.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the part. So it's really fascinating because I think it's very clear that he's going to have a very long career and a very successful career, Nick Kurtz. I think that's abundantly clear. And I think to your point, there's a chance that this guy could be, the guy, right? He could be in the same breath as some of the best power hitters we have in this game because of the ability to maximize his contact. My one concern, and this is splitting hairs here, right? We're talking about the top 3 in the game at what he does, at his position, is he's right at that threshold of contact rate where you can't get much lower and succeed, right? he's right. But at the same point, and the devil's advocate would be, so is Aaron Judge. And Aaron Judge is doing quite fine because he dominates in the zone. He picks his spots, and you can execute 3 pitches and get him. It's going to be hard, and he lays off spin, so it's going to be really hard. And I think Kurtz is kind of cut from that same cloth. So I think there is a world where Kurtz just ends up becoming an iteration of Judge. Just give up a little bit of the raw power, and it's still, if you're 75% Aaron Judge, you're going to probably be a Hall of Famer, especially if you break in the league a few years earlier. But like, that's the one thing I look at is, you look at average exit velocity was 93 miles an hour. It's ridiculous. And then the contact rate was 65%. 65 is right at that barrier of like, okay, you don't really want it to get below that, right? The other thing that helps him big time is the angles and the fact that he's crushing the ball in the air. So he's going to maximize that. But again, like right next to Aaron Judge is O'Neal Cruz. And right next to him on the scatter plot is Jordan Walker. So the margin for error is thin, but the one thing that's very different across these guys the other two that I just mentioned is swing decisions, which Kurtz is way up and closer to the Judge range or above the Judge range on that, and batted ball angles. And Kurtz is way up and in a better, regard in that. It's just hard. There's not a lot of guys that are going to strike out 30% of the time or 31% of the time and not give you some peaks and valleys. And that's just the one thing I'm a little bit nervous of. But at the same time, we've seen guys like Judge cut that strikeout rate as they progress. And I think Kurtz will ultimately do the same thing. And I'll probably feel silly by July for not having Kurtz as, the number 2 or 3 guy overall in this list.
Yeah, I'll take peaks and valleys from a guy that can hit 55 home runs in Sacramento this year. Like, I think 50 is not a very attainable number because it's not very attainable for anyone, but I think 50 is an attainable number for Nick Kurtz. And I think he can push beyond that. And
you can't call him a Sacramento merchant, even though he had 1,039 OPS there.
No, on the road. His 4-homer game was in Houston.
967 OPS on the road.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think this is going to be, I think Kurtz is going to be a number 1 or 2 first baseman in the game within a couple of years, or could be even after this year if he replicates it. I am just interested to see if the whiff rears its head a little bit.
Yeah, makes sense. Number 2, our number 2 first baseman in baseball going into 2026 is the guy that keeps on stiff arming Father Time, Freddie Freeman of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Freddie Freeman is as close to a machine as we have at the first base position. Big guy at 6'4", 220. He's 36 years old. And in his age 35 season, he was still a 3.5 win player. He hit 295 with 39 doubles, 24 homers, 90 driven in, and an 870 OPS. Freddie Freeman is rinse and repeat. I'm going to give you the same damn thing every single year. It looks a little different than, I guess, the Pete Alonso every damn year, Matt Olson every damn year, but you could argue it's better. This guy, his career slash line, he's played 16 years, 300, 386, 511. That's as close to perfect as you can ask for. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. He's probably the next guy to get to 3,000 hits. No, he's at 2431. Is Altuve closer?
I don't think so.
It's either Freeman or Altuve. I think Freeman is going to be the next guy to get to 3,000 career hits. He's going to start checking off these career accolades one by one, and we're just going to wish that we didn't rank him 5 like Peter.
Yeah, that was the other one. I understood maybe being skeptical on the year that he may ultimately have, but just can we go through the rankings across the board for Freddie Freeman?
So Aram had him 1. Ryan had him 1. I had him 2. Eric had him 2. Peyton had him 2. Joey had him 2. Leo had him 3. Peter had him 5.
5. That one hurt me. That was where we had the conversation. I get it.
Do it again, man.
He's 36. I get it. He's coming off of a year where he was probably a little bit less productive than what we've become accustomed to, but at the same time, like, it was a 139 WRC plus. Mind you, he was coming off ankle surgery in December after playing through that ankle issue and torching the postseason. And yeah, he faded a little bit, I think, at the end of the season, but through the first few months, it was like a OPS over 1,000, which is nuts. I just think this guy's going to hit forever. And I always go back to that 2024 postseason as a reason why. he was hitting on one leg and was absolutely dominant and was the World Series MVP and the walk-offs. And again, we talk about just the bonus of being, a postseason performer. I think that is important in this calculation as well. He is one of the postseason performers.
Yeah.
I think with Freeman too, I just think getting away a little bit further removed from that ankle issue that clearly was plaguing him, even though he was still producing so well, I think will help him this year. And I'm just never going to bet against this guy, man. He has been so consistently great every single year. He slugged .502 last season. He's always going to hit around 300. He's always going to hit you anywhere from 22 to 29 homers. He's going to hit you as many doubles as just about anybody. He had 39 again last year. Remember, though, he had 59 doubles in 2023. That 2023 season, he had a 7.7 F WAR, where he hit 331, 410, 567. Then we talk about the 2024 season, but if you bake in the postseason performance, his WRC plus would probably go up to 150. He had such a long year. It's been back-to-back, just ridiculously long seasons as they win the World Series, and he still continues to be productive. And I think you got to take the whole thing into account with Freeman, because they're playing, like we talk about, like it's the LeBron James Big Three Heat type of seasons where sometimes they may maybe coast a little bit in the regular season. This guy is just so valuable in so many different ways, and he's just a model of consistency and also availability too, even off of the ankle issue. 147 games the last 2 years is the least he has played since 2017, where he's basically been playing almost every single game since then. So if the low end is 147, sign me up.
He knows how to take care of his body. He knows how to be a professional every single day. Like, this guy goes about his business in a way that is meticulous and is proven successful. So Freddie Freeman, absolutely the number 2 first baseman in Major League Baseball. Who is our top dog in 26?
Vladimir Guerrero Jr. checks in at number 1. I think what he did in the postseason was one of the best performances we've seen in a while. And we talk about ebbs and flows with a Vladdy, right? Like, we've seen MVP caliber seasons. We've seen, by his standards, disappointing seasons. And I feel like this past year was exactly what you wanted to see, beyond just the postseason performance. Just in the regular season, the way that he finished, everything you wanted to see following up that 2024 year, to say, okay, I think Vladdy's found it. He's consistent. And I think this is the new norm and expectation. He hit that slump at a certain point towards the end of the season. And I mean, it was brutal at the end, and then kicked it back into gear in the postseason and turned the page and was, the performer of the playoffs. And I think that says a lot, because we used to see those slumps become a little bit more prolonged. So now when you look at the last 2 seasons, he's just been incredibly productive. 292, 381, 467 slash line this past year, a 137 WRC plus. But if the season had ended at the end of August, it probably would have been much higher than that. I don't know what the exact number is. I could probably pull that up in a moment. But then again, clicked back into gear and had the postseason performance that he had. Mind you, he's 1 year removed from a 164 WRC plus, which was his second best mark since he was MVP runner-up in 2021. So I feel like now going into his age 27 season, with the ways that he's been able to now work through the slumps. We talk about his loud mechanics and the tendency to put the ball on the ground, and how that had resulted in ebbs and flows for him as well. And I think he's now out on the other side of that, where we're going to see a much more consistent Vladdy. And I think that's why he's the number 1 first baseman for us.
Yeah, it's cool. And, I don't have much to add, but I hate to dumb it down to, okay, he got his bag, now let's go. That was certainly a stress taken off of his plate. And I just feel like we're going to get this free and loose and professional Vladdy that's kind of learning who he is as, a professional and as a Major League Baseball player going into his age 27 season. What he's accomplished before his age 27 season is amazing. And I'm sure that you can query number of guys that have 21 career WAR before their age 27 season, number of guys that have hit these home run markers and have hit 288 with a 15% K rate. There are so many boxes that he checks historically that he will continue to check through his age 30 season and his age 35 season. He seems like one of those guys that, much like his dad, is going to stick around and be good for a really long time. But as long as he's going to be great, he's going to be number 1 for me on this list, just because of how hot the hot actually is.
Well, and here's, I think I know what the answer to this is going to be, but do you think we've seen the best Vladimir Guerrero Jr. season, which he could be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and we could have already seen the best Vladimir Guerrero Jr. season? I mean, look at the conversation we had with Bryce Harper.
Right.
Do you think we saw the best Vladdy season to this point?
To Peyton's point, I think there's a world that his age 22 season was the best. Like, he hit 311 with 48 bombs.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But I also just wonder, because it's such a rare blend of hit and power, like, what could potentially be unlocked there? And by the way, in 18 postseason games, in case we forgot, hit 397, 494, 795, 8 homers in those 18 games, a 1289 OPS, 9% walk rate, 8% K rate. He had twice as many. Actually, that doesn't seem right, because I'm seeing on the counting stats more walks. But anyways, the guy walked a ton, barely punched. 8 homers compared to 7 strikeouts is just ridiculous. And that's always been the fascinating thing with Vladdy, is like, how much can he potentially squeeze out of this plus power, given that he's a plus hitter too? And it's always been the angles. And so if he can improve those batted ball angles just a little bit, I mean, who knows what he can do? Because still, even in this really solid season, his average launch angle on batted balls 95 plus, which is something I love to look at with players, especially prospects, was 8.5 degrees. You want to be around 12 to 13 degrees on average. And, really elite guys will be north of 16 degrees, 17 degrees. If he can find a little bit more there, I don't even know what he could be capable of.
Dude, that would be a top 5 player in the game type of stuff. And he's already in the top 10 to 15 conversation, I think, as a first baseman. And he is just baseball's number 1 first baseman in baseball going into 2026. So that is our list, 1 through 10. Again, phenomenal detailed article online at justbaseball.com, also linked in the episode description. I do have a last word before we go. Peyton, if you've got the clip, if you wouldn't mind firing it, that would be great.
Dominguez ready, the stretch. And again, the 2-2 on the way to Gino. Here she comes, swinging a fly ball deep to right field. Lucas going back to the 1-8 track. Get out the right, bread and mustard, grandma. It is grand salami time.
So Rick Riz, obviously that's an ode to his old broadcast partner in Seattle, Dave Niehaus, the get out the rye bread and mustard, grandma, it's grand salami time. But Rick Riz was initially hired to be Ernie Harwell's replacement in Detroit in 1991. That went about 3 or 4 years. He was let go. I think they brought Ernie back. And he, before that, had a stint in Seattle. He went back to Seattle. This guy has spent 41 years as the radio voice of the Seattle Mariners. Wow. And it was just announced on Monday, I want to say, that it is his final year broadcasting Seattle Mariners games. I just want to say, if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to Seattle Mariners baseball, number 1, you're missing out. Number 2, make sure you do that this year, because Rick Riz on the radio is one of the best announcers in Major League Baseball. This guy's enthusiasm, his passion that he brings every day, and the keep you on the edge of your seat listening experience that you have is second to none. He is, without a doubt, my favorite listen on the way home. And always, I got to listen on the way home in Indianapolis, in Fort Wayne, in Miami, because you're playing on the East Coast. So when the game wraps up, toss your earbuds in, you listen to another game. It was always the Mariners and always Rick Riz. So if you haven't listened to Rick Riz, soak it all in 2026, because this guy is amazing. What an amazing career it's been. And it's going to be a well-earned retirement for Mr. Rick Riz.
I love when the legendary broadcasters announce it, at least give you the heads up for a year, so then you can maximize and go listen. Especially with the MLB TV app now, and as we've talked about, so you can listen to Jack, you can just swap over to the radio side or the audio side and switch to radio. But now, even for me, something I'll be sure to do. It's amazing, but this is also a reason why it's so amazing that you've got a big league radio job. These guys are so good, and then they hold on to the job. They love it so much for 40 plus years, pour their heart and soul into it, and there's never an opening. So it's amazing how hard it is to break in, because again, these guys are so good, and they hold on for 4 decades and just crush it like it's their first year every single time. So honestly, wasn't familiar with this game. Obviously heard some of the calls, so I'm excited to pay a little bit more attention. Appreciate you giving Rick his flowers.
100%. You and everybody else should be listening to a heck of a lot more Rick Riz in 2026. Huge thank you to Peyton Genus being with us as always. For Aram, I'm Jack. Thank you for listening to the top 10 first baseman in Major League Baseball going into 2026. Every link you need is in the episode description. Second base tomorrow. It's an interesting group. Cattell's at the top. What does 2 through 10 look like? You'll find out with us. See you guys.